everyone, to another episode of Taking Up Space, of Michelle Mayer podcast. Super excited about coming forward today with a thought-provoking podcast episode for y'all. You know, today's episode is going to be kind of like a Bible study in the sense that we're going to be talking about Joseph, y'all. I want to talk about Joseph today. And I don't want to delegate this to a Bible study because then I will be backtracking to the book of Genesis. I'll be going back to Genesis. And I don't want to do that. So, you know, really we're not going to be talking about Joseph as... Well, we are going to be discussing Joseph because the story, the basis, the whole foundation of my content is based upon the story of Joseph and his many walks in life. But really, we're going to be using Joseph as an example of perseverance and getting things done regardless. Okay? So keep in mind that the purpose of this conversation I'm having with you guys today is really surrounding God is going to get his will done regardless, friend, whether you want to do it with him or allow him to use you or not. It's not about your decision. It's about what God decides for you. And I'm going to be using Joseph as a prime example as to how this works in life. So, you know, I'm going to revisit my Bible study on Joseph after I complete the whole volume of Bible studies that would encompass the totality of the Bible. So once I get to Revelation and complete my whole walk through Genesis all the way to Revelation, then I will go back through and I will be able to pick from different books in the Bible as to what topics I want to expound upon in the form of a Bible study moving forward. So it won't be consistent as I have been in regards to just going chapter by chapter within my walk with you through the Bible. Once I get to Revelation, I'm just going to go ahead and pick what I want to talk about each week as I feel Spirit moves me to speak to them. Okay, so I'm really excited about this content, the content that I have for Joseph, because as I said, I can relate so deeply to Joseph, y'all, in my own particular life. Like literally, I can totally relate to Joseph and all of his walks. And you know, Joseph has gone from one extreme to the next, and all Joseph's crime is that he told the truth. He gave his truth to people that surrounded him, to his brethren. It so happened to be his blood brethren. He spoke the truth to them in love. So his crime was speaking his truth in love to his brethren. And because of whatever issues they had within themselves, they could not accept his truth. His truth made them feel incompetent. They were already standing on a very unstable foundation. Many of us have people in our lives right now that are our friends or our family members that are standing on unstable foundations. Maybe some trauma that they experienced when they were children that they feel inadequate about, that did not make them feel strong as adults. But they're going about life, they're moving forward in life, as we all have to, with all of these hang-ups and with all of this trauma, doing the best that they can. And they may interact with people that don't suffer from those levels of trauma, and it makes them feel inadequate. It brings to the light their inadequacies. And instead of healing them or looking for tools to heal them, they attack those people. And Joseph is one of those people. So most people that don't know the story of Joseph was, I believe he was the 11th son of Jacob. Okay, Jacob had 12 sons, Israel. All the 12 tribes came forth from Jacob. And Joseph was the 11th. I think Benjamin was the 12th. So Joseph was the 11th child. And Joseph and Benjamin, out of all the 12 children, were Jacob's most loved because They came from Jacob's love, the woman that he actually loved and he actually chose and he actually sacrificed to get, which was Rachel. Okay? So fundamentally, uh, Joseph and his brother Benjamin had somewhat of an advantage because they had the attention of their father. Their father's attention was on them differently than it was on the other 10 children. And because of that, I believe that the 10 children could see that manifest in their lives. Whether it was Jacob showing more compassion towards these two, especially Joseph, or it's taking more time out, or being more lenient and understanding with, whatever it was, it manifested itself in some form of animosity amongst Jacob and his brothers, his other 10, actually his other 11 brothers, because the only one that really showed compassion to Joseph while he was in his trial was Reuben. So long story short, Joseph had the ability to dream. And any of you that dream like myself, I'm a dreamer. Like I have all throughout my life, I've been blessed with the ability to have profound dreams. God has spoken things to me through dreams, so much so that I can discern dreams of God and dreams from other sources because I've studied them so much. You pay attention to yourself, you pay attention to the rhythm, you pay attention to the feeling, the effect of the dream. And Joseph was this same way. Joseph would dream. And I dreams, let me give you an example of this. I have had so many profound dreams in my life that when I tell it to my family, they always equate it to the Martin Luther King speech. I had a dream, they're like, oh, you had another dream, so because it's been so profound in my life all throughout my life. And so I'm telling you, when I tell you I can relate to this story of Joseph so intricately, like literally. So Joseph would dream these dreams, and one night he would tell his dreams to his brethren, because that's what happens when you have dreams. You wake up and you want to find out what it meant, because dreams are like puzzles. They are subtle symbols that are multifaceted. The symbols come in the form of nature most of the time, things of the world. And, you're like, well, what the heck did that mean? Like, what was that? I saw this animal in my dream, and what exactly does that mean? Because the dream was so vivid and it felt so real that there is a meaning to it. Your spirit is yearning to tell you something and you just don't know what it is. And so Joseph wakes up from his dream and he has this dream that the sun, the moon, and the stars all bow to him. And he's happy about it. He's like, wow, just as anyone would if you had such a dream. And it would bless your day. From that day forward, your life, you would feel like, wow, what exactly is this? And how wonderful was that dream? And he went about his day speaking to the people closest to him of what he experienced, as we all would. Even though he knew these people on some level were not always rooting for him. He knew that there may be some jealousy there, or there was some jealousy there, but there was an underlying current of love. You ever had that kind of a relationship with someone where you knew it was just, it might not even be jealousy. It could be another emotion, but there's that undercurrent of that in the relationship, but you know that person loves you. Like, I know you got love for me, but you also have the ability to be this way to me because you feel, I'm such and such and such. That's the way Joseph felt about his brothers. There's no way he didn't know his brothers low-key felt a way about him because of his relationship with his father. So he goes and he tells it to his brothers. He goes and he tells it to his brothers, and they're like, oh, so God is going to make you king over us now? Is that what you're saying? So now you're saying all these dreams that you're dreaming are always positive dreams about God loving you and you being so great. So now you're saying God is going to make you king over us now. So long story short, Joseph's crime was that he was loved. He was loved by his father. He was loved by his mother. And he was loved by God. And that God was going to work many things in Joseph's life. And that Joseph shared this knowledge amongst his brothers out of love. Because could you imagine you being Joseph and you're telling your brothers this or your sisters? And you're saying, you're the first person I'm going to tell this to because you are of the same house as me. And if I'm blessed, you're going to be blessed too. Look at what God is going to do for us. If God makes the sun, the moon, and the stars to bow to me, wouldn't you think I would bless you too? You should be happy for me. Look at what God is going to do for us. But instead of looking at it like that, as they should have befriended their brother. They should have grown closer to their brother. Because Joseph didn't have to share that information. Joseph would have been better off had he kept it to himself. Because it wasn't as if they took that information and multiplied it in a positive way in the earth. They took that information and held it against him and created activities to snag him up, to trip him up, to make it so that thing would not come to pass. They believed him so much that they actually acted on it in their own minds and then made it manifest in their own lives to stop it from manifesting. So instead of looking at it as a team endeavor and saying, let me align closer to my brother because my brother has a blessing of God over his life. And by nature, I know that the temperament of my brother, he's a giving and a loving man. He will bless my life as well. Instead of looking at it like that, they looked at it from a total opposite perspective. And they went and did the wicked. They defaulted to the wicked, y'all. This goes back to what I was saying in my Bible my Bible study the other day. When God moves in your life, God does not move just for you. God moves in your life so you can go and be a movement in someone else's life. When Joseph came unto his brothers and told them this dream, God put that spirit in Joseph to do that. Because Joseph very well could have kept that to himself. It wouldn't have benefited Joseph any more or any less. It wasn't as if his brothers could have allowed or helped him to make the sun, the moon, and the stars to bow to him. God ordained that for him. His brothers couldn't have done anything to stop it. Or they couldn't have done anything to make it come. So why did he need to tell them? He told them obviously because God put the spirit in him to share it. Some things God puts in you to share. And it's your job as a vessel of God to go about life doing what the Spirit of God invokes in you to do. Not stopping the flow of water, not questioning it, acting on it. That is your job as the vessel of God in the earth. And that is exactly what Joseph did. He spoke it to his brothers because the Spirit urged him to do that. And because, as I said in the Bible study, God moves through people. When God moves, God doesn't just move for one person. Never in the Bible does it speak to God moving just to affect one person. God moves like ripples. It moves in all directions. Everyone that is involved, it is a test for everyone. Everyone. So when Joseph spoke his dream to his brothers, it created a ripple effect all throughout all of them. All of them. And the first emotion, I can't even say what the emotion was. The first action that they did was to try to stop it. They defaulted to the wicked. When I'm sure their heart more than likely told them otherwise. They defaulted to the wicked. And that is exactly how God moves. When God moves through your lives, there's many of you that are watching this video that God is moving through, and you don't even know it. It could be a situation you're involved in. It could be a person that you're dealing with. And you are viewing it. And God is using that person as a test for you, friend. As a test to see where you are spiritually. What leg do you stand on? Do you lead with the righteous foot in your life? Do you let the righteous foot lead your life? Or is that just what you talk and say? Or do you lead with the unrighteous foot? Because that is really what your heart feels. That is the cage your spirit is bound in, based upon worldly needs and situations. Do you allow the unrighteous foot to lead your life and direct your life because of worldly needs and worldly situations, just to fit in, just to be cool with? That is what God does through people. He uses people to see what everybody does. It's like a big play, and everybody is a puppet in the play. They think they're dancing to their own rhythm, yet they're dancing to the rhythm of God. And they're invoking their own will at the same time. God is allowing you to invoke your own will. Do as you wish. I want to see you dance. Go and dance. I want to see what foot you lead with when you dance. And that is exactly what is happening here with Joseph and his brothers. Long story short, Joseph's brothers put him in a pit. They're angry with him. They put him in a pit out of jealousy. And one of his brothers, Reuben, is inclined enough to say he's not strong enough to fight them off and to change what is happening. But what he does is he tries to look out for Joseph in his own way. He's the only one that shows some sort of compassion. It wasn't compassionate enough to change anything. But he's the only one that said this isn't really right. But it never made any effect. It never had any effect on what happened. They put this man in a pit, and the other day I was watching a video about Africa and how they the droughts in sub-Saharan Africa, and how they go and they look for water, and they have these different wells, and when the wells run dry, they hop into the well and they dig deeper for more water. And you could tell it was hot. I mean, the guy said it was over 100 degrees outside, and then when you drop into that well, it gets substantially hotter. And the guy was down in the well, and the well was very narrow. It's like a well is just like a hole in the ground. You can't even move 1 or 2 feet in any direction. It's very narrow. And he's down in there digging, and he's saying it feels confining. He feels stifled. It feels hot. And I thought of Joseph. When I saw that. I said, they put Joseph in a pit just like this. Confining. Stifling hot. No one would notice him. If he didn't make a noise with his mouth, no one would notice him. He has not the ability to see above the pit that he's in to even make a noise. He has to use his instincts. He needs to be able to listen and hear when people are around him. But if you're walking and you don't make a noise, or if you're walking animals and they don't make a noise, how do you even know when to yell? So Joseph's in this pit, and some merchants come. And I just did the video on Phoenicia about the Phoenicians being merchants. The Israelites were merchants as well. They bought, sold, and traded. That's how they became so close to the Phoenicians. But the Phoenicians were the plug. Everybody got their goods from. Even the merchants, they got their goods from them and then resold them. So these merchants, the Ishmaelites, another group of the Israelites, were walking. And they heard Joseph in the pit, and they got him out. And his brothers sold him off to the Ishmaelites, and they took him off into slavery. So he leaves the pit, the stifling, hot, confined pit, solitary pit. He's in isolation. I don't know how long he had been in the pit, but he had been in the pit for a while. He leaves that pit of isolation, being isolated. And he gets pulled up out of that. And he gets sold into to slavery, into Egypt, into Potiphar's house, which was a good place to land. Potiphar's house was a good place to land. Even though he was in slavery, it was in a good place. Excuse me. Because it gave Joseph the ability to commune with other people that had probably been into slavery, sold into slavery, come from various areas. He got the ability to network, and he got the ability to be able to see the political system going on in Egypt from a high level. He's amongst people that serve high level people. So he's communing with the people that serve the decision makers, the political people, the people, the influencers. He's in the realm of those people. Yeah, he's not communing with those people in a way where he could actually have deep conversations with them. He's communing with the people that serve them. The people that get to see the behind the scenes activity of these people, but they can't tell nobody about it. He gets to see the people that serve them and get to see all the background stuff that they do that the world doesn't see. So he's getting insider knowledge on the people that make decisions in the nation. And he's getting all the intricacies of what they do and how they do it, and who's with who and who's not with who, and why they are making it seem as if it's one way when really it's another way. He's getting all the insider knowledge from the staff. So much so that he's up under Potiphar's wife. And Potiphar's wife sleeps with the help, as I said in the Bible study, as probably many of the wives that married the politicians did. They had a little thing going on where they fooled around with the help or with other people, and nobody, the nation didn't really know it, but the staff would know it. And because Joseph is a man of integrity, and he was Potiphar's friend, what most men would do in sleeping with Potiphar's wife, Joseph wouldn't do, because this is Jacob's son. This is a man of integrity. This is a man that comes from a righteous house. He comes from his father's house. This is his father's favorite son, who his father poured love into and attention into, and made sure that he knew laws and he knew how to conduct himself as a man, and what you do as a man and what you don't do as a man. This was not a vagabond. This wasn't a wild man. This wasn't a man of a broken home. This wasn't a man that came from trauma, that will do any and everything to get what he needs, even though Jacob was something else. Jacob was something else, but Jacob was a man of integrity. I spoke, go look at the book, the Bible study on Esau. Jacob didn't do a disintegritous thing to Esau. Jacob capitalized on another man's ignorance. When it was in a situation that other man was allowing his birthright to be compromised in, somebody had to take the throne. Esau was making terrible decisions, squandering that which was precious. So his mother made an executive decision, and Jacob, being smart enough and intelligent enough, saw an opportunity and he took it. Jacob's son, Joseph, is looking around. And he said, I'm in a terrible situation. I'm going from pillar to post. I went from a pit. Now I'm back over here in slavery. I'm not a slave. Nobody can help me. I got to help myself. And so he observes his environment. This is for all them people tell you not to look around. You better look around. You better be observing. You better use every last one of your gifts. You better hone in on every last one of your gifts and observe, peep, gain. You had better. And that's exactly what Joseph did. He observed. And when compromised by Potiphar's wife, whom he already knew was sleeping with other people, the staff all knew it, I'm sure, and was set up by this woman, Joseph goes into prison. Now, he done left Potiphar's house, where he was privy to all the goings on within political Egypt, within the political environment. I mean, at a certain level. He's able to see the behind the scenes dynamics. He gets all the rumors from the staff, the high level staff. He has information on the upper class, on the upper echelon, as to how they move that most people don't notice. Most of the nation would not know all of this stuff. Only those in that environment, orbiting in that environment, would know this. And he gets sold into slavery. He gets cast down into a low environment where the prisoners are. But not every prisoner. He's not in the prison with all the prisoners of the nation. There obviously were tiers to the prison system. The prison that Joseph was thrown in was a prison of all of the king's prisoners, those that offended the king. So now he's in a place where he's privy to the underbelly society. All those that do the back door kind of stuff. So now he's privy to the front door aspect of the king's house, and he's thrown in an environment where he's privy to the back door information. He's privy to the hookups. He's privy to the behind the scenes activity. He's privy to all of that. All of those that were hired to do the dirty work and that it didn't work out and they had to be punished. He's privy to that now. He has the best of, he got knowledge in both worlds. And Joseph he's industrious. He has the ability to see opportunities when most wouldn't see it, without making people know that he sees them. He's in the prison and he becomes head of the prison. I said this in the Bible study. You don't get head of as a prisoner, you don't get the ability to be head of the other prisoners without being a comparable individual. You got to earn that. Them prisoners, you can become head of the prisoner by the guards if you want to, but they'll just get rid of you. That tells me that Joseph earned respect of the prisoners. Respect. In order to become head of the prisoners, and you're still a prisoner, you got to be able to show those guards that them people respect you. Because if not, all the guards are doing, if they put you in that role, is setting you up to get assassinated. Joseph does well in that role. So much so that the baker and the butler get thrown in jail. And you already know Joseph is ear hustling. He over there talking and asking and using people to go and ask and talk. He got people in prison, I'm sure, that were other heads of the prisoners on a lower level than him, giving him information. Joseph was a don in jail. Think of prison nowadays. You got people that run different groups in prison. Joseph was the head of all of them. same. Joseph was the head of all of them. There was nobody above Joseph in the prison outside of the guards. That should tell you something about Joseph. All of y'all that want to make it seem like, oh, you're a sinner. Oh, you're this and you're not that. Or, oh, Joseph was able to mingle with the people that were in prison, had done heinous crimes, and get their respect. In order to get respect on that level, you got to be able to display that kind of characteristic on that level. And those people can tell if you're faking, friend. You can't fake it amongst people that really get after it. You can fake it amongst people that fake it. You cannot fake it in the underbelly. You cannot. And Joseph was one of them people. The baker and the butler come. Joseph shows himself useful. See, that's the thing. Many people want to get hooked up to stuff. Do you not know how many people I have met in life that look for a hookup? From LA to Atlanta. I have met so many people in my adult life that just get dressed up and dolled up every day just so that they can go out and display an image, so that they can attract people, so that they can latch on to them people and get hooked into what them people have sacrificed and built from nothing. The world is filled with these people. They bring nothing of value. Nothing. All they bring is a look. That's it. And the ability to be flexible in adapting themselves to whatever you got going on. They don't bring no value. And then when you connect with them and you bless them with all that you know and all that you got going on, you better not ever hit a low point, because they're going to turn their backs on you and go find somebody else that they can latch onto that you probably introduced them to. Or that you probably gave them a perspective on that they found lucrative, and now they're going to go within that circle and look for someone like you that can help them. Joseph was not that person. Joseph was a useful individual because Joseph had many blessings. Joseph had many gifts, y'all. Joseph had an anointing. And with an anointing of God, you can do anything. God will equip you with the ability to do anything. Joseph uses his gift that he is born with, that comes naturally, the same gift that got him in the situation he's in. The gift of interpreting dreams. Joseph's ability to interpret dreams was based on the fact that God used dreams to speak to Joseph all throughout his life. So he had to be able to figure out his own dreams. And in the ability and in the activity of looking at his own situation and studying his own life and pondering his own path, he gained a superpower that he could not learn, that no textbook could teach him, that no soothsayer could sprinkle on him, that would never leave him, that would only grow as he grew, that never declines in power, only gets better. And it was nothing for him to distinguish that dream. Nothing. And he spoke it so matter-of-factly, without fear. Because back in that time frame, if you prophesied something and it didn't come true, then people will stone you. It wasn't no joke. You prophesy a false prophet, then people will stone you. Joseph spoke that dream to them people as if it was nothing. He had seen it before. He'd been there and done that. He don't need to go reference nobody. He knows it. And he said, don't forget I told you that. Don't forget I told you. It's going to come. When you get back over there in the Pharaoh's house, remember me. Surely years would pass. You don't hear Joseph fretting. You don't hear about none of the details in between that time. All you hear about is that the butler honored his agreement. Because the butler had to get back good with Pharaoh. It would take time, and I'm sure Joseph knew this. And as time passed, the butler made himself useful to Joseph. See, when somebody do something for you, you got to give back. Even if it's inconveniencing. You get to a place when God wants to work through you, friend, and you lead with the righteous foot, nothing but blessings come to you. Joseph spoke that to the butler. The butler went back. And in time, God made that butler useful. God kept that butler close to Pharaoh. So much so that Joseph's will could be made manifest within that butler. That's how God worked. I have seen this all throughout my life. It is amazing to me. God works just that way. And if you don't make yourself useful, God will remove you, friend. That which would have blessed you and served you, it won't matter. God will move you and put somebody else in that space. So now Joseph goes before Pharaoh with the same gift. Look at how it's all going full circle. The gift that Joseph came forward with to his brothers, the gift that he was singing all along to his brothers, the gift that made them hate him, the gift that they resented in him because they knew it was true, the same gift that made them feel inadequate. Because you got some people in life, friend, like I said, they don't stand on solid ground. And they can have tremendous blessings in their life made manifest. Yet you come with your own unique blessing that they don't possess, even though they possess many others that are different than yours. They want yours. And some blessings you cannot manufacture. Some blessings you cannot buy. And that in itself infuriates people. It'll make people hate you because they cannot manufacture it. There's nothing that they can do to acquire it outside of God blessing them with it. And because they cannot corrupt God, they cannot manipulate God, that is why they're angry. It has nothing really to do with you when you get to the source of it. It has everything to do with their ability, or their inability rather, to manipulate their way into it, to manipulate God. There is a level that they get to that they can go no further, that what they want has to be given to them. It can't be given to you by sex. You can't screw your way into it. You can't befriend your way into it. You cannot buy your way into it. It has to be bestowed upon you by good character, by obedience, by discipline, by righteousness of heart. These be the things. And because they could not get that, they would rather destroy it, or at least look to. Joseph gets in front of Pharaoh, and Joseph not only speaks the truth to Pharaoh. Joseph is wise, baby. Joseph, that night before he went before Pharaoh, when they were getting him cleaned up and shaved up, Joseph probably was in a meditative state. And he says, okay, we're going to go and we're going to do what we do best. We're not going to reach too far. We're not going to settle for less. We're going to let the Spirit flow. But we need to use all of the knowledge we've obtained from both sides of the house, the upper side and the lower side. And we're going to paint a picture for Pharaoh. We're going to become an asset to Pharaoh. We're going to meet Pharaoh on Pharaoh's level. We're not coming to Pharaoh like an ignorant individual. We're going to come to Pharaoh like an ally. We're going to speak to Pharaoh as if we are in partnership with Pharaoh. We're going to talk to Pharaoh through the God that is within us. We're going to let the God within us speak to us. And that is a high level place. Because Pharaoh is speaking to you through the God that is within him. And that's what he does. He goes and he paints a picture to Pharaoh. He tells Pharaoh about the famine and all the things that will come. And not only does he speak it to him, he creates a solution. He makes himself useful. He is necessary. He has transitioned from a dream interpreter into a valuable asset. One that is rare. All from him doing what God bestowed upon him to do. Now you see, Joseph, listen, gets promoted because of this. Pharaoh opens his entire kingdom up to Joseph. Joseph honors this relationship because Joseph understands the rules and the dynamics at play that Joseph himself are bound to. Because had Joseph not honored it, Joseph would be taken out of alignment with God. See, alignment is righteousness regardless. Alignment is righteousness in keeping a certain level of integrity. Righteousness is not a situation-based thing. No, righteousness is all the time. Joseph agreed to do a thing. Joseph said, I'm going to do it and I'm going to continue to do it. If I say I'm going to do it, it's going to be done all the time. I don't change from it. I don't deviate from it. If you stay the same, I'm staying the same. I make the agreement based upon this criteria. I'm going to honor that. If you honor your end, I'm honoring mine. And he does it. And the blessings of God just flow. Joseph was a blessing to them people. Who in your life is a blessing? Who in your life brings blessings? Joseph would do a tremendous thing in Egypt. The Egyptians allowed Joseph and his brethren and all of them to come and make space for them without there being anarchy in the country. Any other time, them people would have bucked. Those people would have revolted against Joseph. But because Joseph knew, Joseph had relationships. Joseph was the type of person that could work in the king's house. And Joseph could get down and dirty with them in the hood amongst the prisoners. So much so that when Jacob died, friends, the Egyptians and the army, all of them, freely went with Joseph to bury Jacob. So much so that the Egyptians sold everything they had under a system that Joseph created through God that will secure these children for 400 years, y'all. Make it so that these children would be necessary. They would continuously be needed and useful. Protecting them. Even in the end, when things got bad, the Egyptians were not too far away from them economically. This is what created such a bad situation. is that after Joseph had transitioned and the children had multiplied and had just done tremendous things in Egypt, the Egyptians themselves were beginning to feel outnumbered, and they felt as if they were economically less than these children or not too much higher. And then what does God do? Man, I'm telling you, if you knew how much you were loved. I'm so sick of this. If you knew how much you were loved, you would snap out of it. So much so that God will send another, a great one this time. He will send Moses in the same area, this time from a baby. Let him grow and let him know who he was. He's a Hebrew, but you are in the house of Pharaoh. I need you to know, I need you to grow amongst these people. I need you to, just as Joseph did, I need you to be in a situation where you understand how to communicate at the level of Pharaoh, but that you know you are of these people. And I will put a fire in you to make you compassionate to these people. And I will make you leave so that you can never go back to that house. I will put you in a situation where you will never be able to go back into that house. You'll never be welcomed back into Pharaoh's house again, as you were. And I will allow you to see how your people are, how they betray one another, how there is no loyalty amongst them. And I'll lead you right to Jethro. And I'm going to sit you there for 40 years. 40 years. And I'm going to make you a king. Jethro made Moses a king through God. Jethro, the same priest of Egypt. This is a priest. This is a shaman. He's the same shaman as Balak. Him and Balak neck to neck. They do the same thing. These are sorcerers. These are people that get after spirit in a way that it will blow your mind. It will. The power that we see nowadays is nothing. These people can control winds. They can create. They can make fire fall down from heaven. Man, I don't want to make this into a Bible study, because when I get to talking about it, it's fascinating. All from Joseph. So what I'm getting to is that God gets his will done regardless, y'all. God showed that dream to Joseph, where the sun, the moon, and the stars would bow to him. And through all of Joseph's journey, even though his brothers wanted to stop it, God got it done regardless. His brothers could have accepted it and made it easier for themselves. All of that could have been alleviated. And Joseph would have went on another journey. And it would have been a blessing to his brothers. They would have been blessed had they led with the righteous foot. But because they didn't, they suffered. They got nowhere. It doesn't speak to anything that his brothers did that was triumphant. Nothing. Nothing at all. If anything, they suffered. And Joseph went on a miraculous journey, and Joseph got blessed. Regardless, all the pain, all the fear, all the doubt, all the confusion, Joseph got blessed regardless. It all blessed him. It made him better. Joseph's name was known in Egypt in a way that it could not have been known any other way. From top to bottom, from the upper house from the Pharaoh's house to the prisons, they all knew Joseph and they respected it. They respected who he was. His reasoning of getting thrown into prison and being put in slavery and put in a pit didn't overshadow nothing God did in his life. It didn't even matter. If anything, it gave him stripes. It made him relatable. It all blessed him. Yet you don't hear no blessings coming from any of the other brothers. None. You don't hear any blessings coming until after Joseph, they come into Egypt. And Joseph blesses them. Joseph is blessing him like he's Pharaoh. Joseph counsels them on how they need to conduct themselves, how they need to speak, how they need to speak, all of this. God got it done regardless. He ended up helping them regardless. Because when God gave Joseph that dream that the sun, the moon, and the stars would bow to him, he was speaking to his own brothers as well. He ended up blessing them regardless, whether they wanted it or not. He ended up prevailing regardless, whether they wanted him to or not. He ended up being a blessing regardless, whether they wanted it for him or not. My message to you today is that when you are walking in your righteous walk, now when I say righteous, I'm not talking about doing all the things right and never talking a certain way or never doing a certain thing or never this and that and the other. I'll never come before you and make it seem like you got to be perfect, because I'm not perfect. I look to do the righteous thing. The righteous thing is following the word of God in your heart. Period. It's not wearing a skirt all the way down to your ankles and wearing a shirt up to your neck. It's not showing your arms and, all. It's not none of that. It's when the Spirit of God speaks to you to move in a certain way and to do a certain thing, that you do that. That you honor another person as if you would honor yourself, or as if you would want someone to honor you. That's what it's about. Joseph did that. And because of that, all sprang forth from him, from within Israel, all of it. This was the beginning of these children's walk. Joseph began that in Egypt. Just wanted to come on with a short story about perseverance, persevering regardless. Perseverance is the ability to keep going in whichever direction you got to move. Perseverance is not willpower. When I speak to perseverance, I gotta say this. When I speak to perseverance, I'm not talking about forcing myself through will. No, perseverance is being able to hear the word of God when it moves and tells you to take the next step. That's what perseverance is. It's not a willful thing. It's a loving thing. It's the ability to try again in love, based upon a knowing. Not to compete, not to prove somebody wrong, not to look a certain way, but because you know you should do that. It's a knowing. It's a feeling. It's a knowing. How do you know what to do? You listen to the God that is within you. And in order to hear the God within you, you got to listen. You have to study it. You have to pay attention. And it's a walk. Because you got many imposters out there, all vying for your attention, all wanting you to move in their various directions. His brothers were jealous of his potential. None of the things that he had spoken to them manifested. Yet they believed in him. They believed just by looking at him, by hearing him. They believed. And their belief in him made them jealous of his potential. Potential meaning the ability to do a thing, to be successful at that. That is what they were looking to thwart. His potential. Because they knew that that potential met with action and focus would be birthed. It will birth a thing. And their ability to stop it from birthing is what they were banking on. Just a story on Joseph, y'all. Just a story on Joseph. We're loved more than we'll ever know. I'll never stop telling you, because it's the God's honest truth. Be good to yourselves. And don't just say you're going to be good to another. Actually, be good to each other. Peace and love.